If not now, then when? I've had a challenging time over the years getting my hands around this, like a lot of us do. It's difficult to quantify the cost of not doing something. Jim Rohn has a quote. He says, if you think trying is risky, wait till they hand you the bill for not trying. But here's what we can do. We can reminisce, we can go back to the greatest risks we've ever taken, to the greatest challenges in our lives, even the tragedies we've endured, and draw a line to what they created for us, what doors they ultimately opened. We can see what they became. And this idea or concept was the crux of my TEDx talk and speech, Running in the Rain. The idea that it was the heartbreak that allowed me to meet some of the most important people in my life. It was going back to the fear of change that ultimately led me to be the person I always wanted to be. It was going back to the times that I more or less stared inadequacy in the eyes, that I was able to level up and grow into who I always wanted to become. I really don't know where I'd be without those changes. And yeah, some of them were forced upon me, right? Life sort of threw them at me. But isn't that the point? Imagine moving into that haze without life needing to nudge you. Or imagine the advantage of stepping into the great unknown of your own volition. Imagine lighting the fire or taking the first step now. There's a Chinese proverb that I love. It states, the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And I love that because, yeah, it shows us that time is on no one side, but also points to the control and the power we have over paving a path, right? Blazing a trail from here forward. And so the question becomes, well, how do you create that momentum? Well, you start by simply planting a seed, because when you're in motion, you give yourself something to adjust to. It's a lesson I've learned a few times, right? Without realizing that I've gotten too comfortable. A simple example being YouTube, right? The platform that has played a big role in my brand. And, looking back, I see all the twists and turns and changes, all trying to find a better way to communicate, to add value, to help people. Right? There have been a ton of evolutions there. Speeches, silent films, travel videos, little documentaries, music, spoken word, short videos, long videos, 30 seconds, 3 hours. You get the point. And I'll continue to do that, right? To grow, because when you're in motion, you're creating a data set, a sample size, something to learn from, to adjust and adapt to. It's like living out that cliche that failure makes you wiser. Well, things are cliches for a reason, right? There's an element of truth to them. And if you're untarnished, you haven't tried enough. You haven't wandered enough. Your ship has not left the harbor, and there's so much to explore. So when you're sitting there, right, thinking about all the things you like to do, all the things that you dream of doing, but the process seems too foreign or too big, here's the beautiful news. You don't need to do anything but plant that seed. You only need to walk out the front door, create a mini data set, as unsexy as that sounds, to build off of. Someone once told me to stop trying to create perfection. It doesn't need to be a perfect plan. It needs to be a good enough plan to get the wheels in motion, right? To take you from right now to anywhere else. I think a lot about how fast time goes by, how our lives flash before our eyes. I just blinked and I'm 34. I was, playing basketball and soccer in my front yard with the neighborhood kids what seems like 15 minutes ago, and that sentiment seems to speed up, not slow down, right? The finitude of life becomes more and more apparent. And so the question is, what can you do now so that the next time you blink and find yourself years down the road, you'll be proud of the path you took, grateful for where life led you? What fear can you step into? What courage can you scrape up so that the gift presented to you is fully delved into? One of your greatest strengths is to make your mistakes now, to fall down and get back up now, right? To be humbled by life now. And sure, it's costly. Right? Your hurt pride is costly. Not getting that immediate feedback is costly. Moving forward in exhausting energy without validation is costly, but manageable. To not go at all is a kind of expensive that no one can afford. There's a point for everybody where, life tells you directly or indirectly that it's time to level up, right? And I think that's a good thing. Life is a staircase where, the climb to that next step is uncomfortable, but then you get there and things sort of normalize. And in your soul, it's time to take that next step, right? Step up again, and that step is going to be just as uncomfortable as the one before. It's going to be different. It's going to be bigger. You'll have evolved, but change is always uncomfortable, and that's just the way it works. And I want to share with you something that a friend of mine, Evan, told me, and it helped me see that process differently. He was talking to me specifically in terms of being in front of a camera, which will make sense when you hear the metaphor, but I think it's applicable to, everything, any situation. I was talking about that need, that feeling, that want to take the next step, and very basic question, what do you want to do? And I wasn't exactly sure how I saw things evolving, right? And so the metaphor was, well, you've been Mickey Mouse for so long that you've been sort of neglecting the Walt Disney side of things. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe that's how it should be. Maybe someone else should be Walt Disney. Maybe you should be Walt Disney and Mickey less. Like, however you want to, you can bend that and reshape it a million ways. But the idea was, when you are so focused on being in front of a camera, telling your story, writing, creating, sometimes you lose sight of where the ship is going. And I just thought that was such a powerful metaphor. If it makes you think, and I've spent weeks thinking about it, it's the right message. It's what you need to hear. And I've been talking to people who are doing things that have nothing to do with speaking or content creation, anything like that. And when they talk about their situation, it's funny, I find myself relaying the same message, because it's like, you are so in the weeds of your day-to-day, doing things that, are important, but they're smaller details. They're more technical things. They're more day-to-day operational things that you don't know where that metaphorical ship is sailing. And it's because you haven't been able to step back and really think about it. Really assess where you're going and why and why it matters to you. And so one of the answers that I've found Well, it's a two-part answer. It's finding a way, and this is not rocket science, but it's sort of step one, to take the smaller things and get them off of your plate. But the other thing is to make intentional time to just think, to really reflect on life and where you're going, and understand, like really try to deeply understand where you are now, where you want to be, and how you can bridge that. That's a powerful thing to be able to comprehend, and it's very easy. When I talk about this, the thing that drives me crazy is it feels so obvious and feels so intuitive. I could have spent another 2 years neglecting that, right? But you just get so caught up doing what you do in the day-to-day, right? Falling behind, catching up, managing the pieces, moving the widgets around, trying to stay afloat, that you don't have time to ask the big picture question. And so that's what this is all about. It's, are you so busy being Mickey Mouse in your life that the Walt Disney side of things is being neglected, needs some love, needs some vision and some understanding? And if that's the case, beautiful, because now you're thinking about it, now the wheels are in motion, and you can point that ship where you need it to go. What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk about 6 mental shifts that completely transform my life. As Thoreau would say, it's not what you look at, it's what you see. And I'm a firm believer that the way we analyze, interpret, perceive the world around us directly correlates to the lives we lead and what we're capable of doing. And I want to talk about some of the ways that I changed the way I looked at life, and got results back that helped me pivot, that helped me grow, helped me become more as a person, as a creator, as an entrepreneur. And hopefully you can take that and use it in your own lives as well. The caveat being, I don't want this to be interpreted as magic, right? This isn't you think something and it happens. It's not at all the case. What I'm advocating is, when you think about something differently, you tend to then act differently. And when you act differently, well, the results are different, right? So it all starts with how you look at a situation. And that's what I'm advocating. We can look at the world in a way that puts us in position to win. Number one, and I'm sure this is no surprise to you guys, your external world is a product of your internal world. I grew up thinking that things just were the way they were. The parameters, the boundaries that I operated within, I never questioned. I never saw them as anything but what I thought they were supposed to be. And as I got older, I learned to take a step back and realize that things seem a certain way to me because I've allowed them to. I haven't questioned them. I haven't pushed back. It's not what happens, it's how you perceive what happens. Jim Rohn has a really cool story about 2 brothers that grow up, unfortunately in a very abusive family. They have an abusive dad. And they grow up and they have families of their own. And one is just as abusive to his kids. And he's asked about it and he says, yeah, of course I am. Like, how could I not be? Did you see what I went through as a child? And the other one is incredibly loving and caring with his kids. And when he's asked about it, he says, of course I am, right? You see what I went through as a child? I'm not putting anybody through that. And to me, I thought that was just a beautiful articulation of the choice we have in life. We can't decide what happens to us, but we can always decide what we do about it, how we perceive it. And that's why I make this number one. It's kind of the gateway into a happier, healthier existence. Number 2 is that you are the captain of your ship. And this is important because a lot of people feel confined to their past, right? I like to say the wake of the boat does not drive the boat. Where you've been does not control where you go next. And sure, it's a part of you, and it's important to have gotten you to this moment, but it's not the future. And you're always free to make a change or do something new or go somewhere you haven't done before. It's amazing the obligation we feel to be who we were yesterday, and there's just no reason for it, right? Edward Norton once said, when I was doing some YouTube surfing, I found a pretty cool clip where he's talking about the importance of the shoes an actor wears. They become the most important part of the costume, the character, because everything starts from the ground up. And I like to think every morning when we open the closet, we have an opportunity to put on a new pair of shoes, to be a new character, to try something new, to jump into a world that we want to jump into. There's no reason to be fearful or hold ourselves back because of yesterday. Number 3 is joining the irrational few, as I like to call it. Being different, embracing your unique sense of self. As Robert Frost said, 2 roads diverged in a wood. I took the one least traveled by, and that made all the difference. And, I think that's the perfect metaphor for life. Everyone's going one way, and we innately want to go that way. But I think the most precious, powerful, life-changing decisions we make are when we do the exact opposite, when we find the parts of ourselves that are different, that are unique, that stand out. And instead of running from those, when we immerse ourselves in those things, man, we add value to ourselves and the world in a way that never would have happened if we didn't find that courage. And so that's what that shift has helped me understand, right? It's like the guitarist in his room practicing for 15 hours a day. He's an outcast, right? Cut off from society, doesn't get it, not doing X, Y, or Z. Then all of a sudden he writes this song that revolutionizes music, and he's a hero, and people want to be that and understand that and be a part of that. Well, why? Because he went through the trials and the tribulations associated with taking that path or road least traveled by. I'd advocate that for anyone. Explore, try things, test life. That's what it's there for. Number 4 is dance before the music plays, and this one's near and dear to my heart, right? Because you do the first 3. You understand the power of your world within. You become the captain of your ship. You join the irrational few, but it's like, now what, right? The real world is a tough place, and you realize that you're on this journey, and you have to will your results into existence. You have to dance before you hear the music, because here's the reality. And we all learn this at one point or another. No one walks up to you on the street and puts their arm around you and says, hey kid, that dream you have, keep going. That's gonna happen. I believe that. That's just not the reality. People only believe what they see, and they won't see it until you create it. Right? And so it's bridging that gap between your idea and the manifestation of that idea. You have to hear the song when no one else does. You have to believe it. And if you do that, it helps understand that there will be lows and there will be highs. That's part of life. But it doesn't mean it's over or you've gone the wrong route or the wrong path or the world's against you. No, it means this is life. And if you want something bad enough, this is what you have to endure, and you're willing to, because you hear that song, you're moving towards it, and you will show the world what's up when the time comes. Number 5 is what I refer to as staying awake while the world sleeps. And what do I mean by this? Well, it's the idea that the biggest things we can do, they're not the grand slams or grandiose displays of excellence. They're just not. They're consistent displays of discipline and courage and saying yes when most would say no. W. Clement Stone put it nicely when he says, big doors swing from little hinges. And so it's not looking at the little things as nuance or unimportant noise. No, the little things are everything. Separating your time. I remember Kobe talking about, a certain amount of hours he gets up and shoots every day when most people don't, over the course of a year, over the course of 10 years. I mean, it becomes so much in the aggregate that other players can't catch up. I mean, it's just too much of an advantage. And that's what it's about. I wrote my TEDx talk about something called running in the rain, which is about embracing that discomfort. It's like opening the door in the morning in Boston. It's freezing, sleety rain, and you could easily go inside and run later, or you can grab a beanie and a coat and run now. And it doesn't seem important at the time, but it's everything at the time, because when you learn to say yes to those little discomforts, it moves beyond that run. It goes into every aspect of your life, and it's like you see yourself as someone who embraces adversity, someone who capitalizes on those little advantages. And over years, man, they're not little. They become big. They become important. So, run in the rain. And number 6, see life as a game. It's just not as serious as we make it out to be. This is something, by the way, that's not easy to follow through with or understand. I tell myself this every single day of my life. But when I'm cognizant of this, I'm happier and I'm more productive. I do believe wholeheartedly that this is the key to happiness, to impact, to everything worth having, is understanding that life is not a checklist. It's not a standardized test. It is a game. I was sitting down, this is a life-changing experience. I've written about it before on this channel, with some very successful, wealthy people at this table in Los Angeles that, most of them came from nothing. And I'm sitting there, soaking it all in as the YouTuber at the end of the table. And it's like the commonality between all of them was that it's like, what can I do? What can I make? Oh, I failed here. What did I learn? What can I do tomorrow? What would be fun? What does the world need? They're not operating from a place of fear. And again, these people weren't born millionaires. This mindset created the world that they have today. One of them was an immigrant from Iran, came here with nothing. It's like, you see the importance. As one of my good friends, Zach, as a kid that walks around his living room and just pokes things, picks things up, sometimes breaks them, changes them, moves them around, uses them to make forts, tents, does all these things. But it's like, that is life. That's what life should be. We should be walking around exploring, testing, trying things, growing, not worried about protecting and maintaining the little universe we have, but giving everything to expanding that universe and just seeing what we can make. I'm convinced that's where the magic is. And that's why it's number 6. Life is a game. So hey, I hope this helps you see something maybe a little bit differently, and most importantly, act on that perception. Never forget, you're always one decision away from a totally different life, and that could start right now. Talk to you guys later.